I'm going to tell you all a little story this evening. I had a moment of clarity when I was at Compass House one of these times. Told me that I was into women. And couldn't have made me happier. That was a moment of peace. It made my life so much more transparent. I was no longer complacent in my position of the nightmare that I had found myself in due to feeding that particular false identity that I had taken on due to punishment, due to my aunt saying, just kidding, just kidding. Things to that nature. And repressive masculinity, well, it wasn't repressive masculinity so much as I had had a discussion with my mother many years ago, and she wanted me to return to that kid that was picking raspberries, that nice, innocent, kind kid, which is why we're having the problems that we're having currently, folks. My dad says he wants to have some fun, but he's not my father. Come to find out, he's a guy that's violated women in my life. Says that I need to search within myself and know him and know that he wouldn't do these things. Looking at my fucking YouTube, something in common with both pages earlier, the phrase statutory rape, which is what happened to Selena. Statutory rape. You know, it's a pretty cut and dry phrase, and it's what happens when you have sex with a minor that can't make the decision to consent to sexual contact on her own or his own. You know, kids these days, they're so sexualized, they're so pressured, they're so, you know, non-binary, binary. A lot of this stuff, not only is it not part of what originally was supposed to be the gender roles and everything else, but we're making things almost impossible for kids to be kids. And for kids to just learn who they are. You know what I'm saying? And women during the female liberation movement didn't want to just be recognized as cooks and cleaners. They wanted to be recognized as something, to have something to offer in the workplace. And you know, I see these women in Nanaimo, and I actually talk to some of them. They don't just want to be, you know, in the workplace. They want to take over. And that, it's almost like a reverse in the sense that not only do they want credit in the workplace, they want to take over the workplace. They want the guys at home cleaning and playing Mr. Mom. And I get these emails from Cheryl, and she says, you owe me, I don't owe her anything. She's made my life an ever-loving misery. And you know, there's part of me that wants to conclude what's been taking place in my life when it comes to Rodica Greco and things of that nature, and have some arrests affected. And I feel like that's the only way I'll ever get some peace. and there'll be no gun to any woman's head. And I had everything just the way I wanted it. And lo and behold, Selena came along and nearly blew it all out of the water due to Joe's fragile fucking manhood. And I can't fucking handle that. Not because it's him and not because it's her, but because the woman that I claim to care about turned around, spit in my face, and betrayed me for him. And turned this into some kind of a fucking contest for him. And I can't stand this shit because of that fact. And even he was like at the start of all this, are you sure you want to have her in your life? And at the time I was so sure. At the time I was so sure. And a lot of it was, let me help you, I promise I can help you. I promise you'll be better because of me, and I promise I can set you free. But I can't set her free of her pain, nobody can. Her pain is firmly implanted inside of her. And you know, those phrases today that I read, or the other day, statutory rape, if that sex cult is accurate, that happened in the Rutland Seventh-day Adventist Church. And you know, so far today I've met a couple of different ex-congregation members that no longer go to the Rutland Seventh-day Adventist Church. And an aunt that's been sending me messages stating she got her butt whooped by Richard. What am I supposed to do with that? She originally said about dating Richard so that she could fuck with me to begin with. So that she could have somebody else that could fuck around with me and get away with it. Because she was undermanned, under the gun, and she started getting in touch with crackheads somehow. I still can't figure out how exactly that happened. Saying that I had lost my virginity to them while I was on the street, coming home and finding out that my sister, my brother-in-law, and my mother were watching comedies, eating Athena's pizza, and drinking copious amounts of whiskey, thinking the whole thing was funny while an 11-year-old was outside on the street, and I had broadcasted it to Mrs. Reiki. She didn't believe me. But as the day went past and she phoned my mother later in the day, she came to find out that that was accurate. So what do you do with that? What do you do with the fact that superhero mommy threw your baby little bunker boo boy out on the street, and he's actually sitting there trying to do his homework? Fucking weird, because she couldn't get me to do it when I was at her house, because I wouldn't do it. Because if I was actually thinking, then perhaps maybe I would let her know why I was sexually active at 8 years old, and why I wouldn't go see my father for any of the planned visits. And Cheryl says, well, son, you got all the connections you said were here wrong. But see, I don't believe that I did. I don't believe that I did, not one little bit. Because there's still questions that were raised. There was Diane's mother that had been working for Walmart that knew the friends that my mother had and knew that Diane would call into question anything that came out of my mouth because, you know, for all the times that I got called to be this sort of master planner, this architect, this evil man, I was some sort of fetal alcohol syndrome fuck up. Only thing is my IQ will attest to the exact contrary. So see, go figure that. And then I go see a doctor and they say, well, we're not completely infallible, Chris. But the thing is, she had fucked up my reputation to the point where they would break these papers out and tell anybody that came there from the church that that's who I was. Not realizing that they had literally done that with no research and that I did not match one single piece of the criteria on the DSM list. But again, they're not infallible, and yet again, that doesn't seem to matter, because I guess that makes me want to call Diane a selective reader. And then I got thrown on the street when I got older by Diane and Dad twice more. And I've been thrown out here for the umpteenth time by Selena, who called me back here. And then, although she said I'd have a place to stay, didn't hesitate to putting me back outside one more time.